For today's session, we will be seeing how the Philippines' mangrove ecosystems are faring given the current time and situation, and seeing how important our coasts and mangroves are. And to address that, we will discuss the different sustainable practices and introduce different concepts about the proper management of the coastal areas of the country. And without further ado, perhaps we should begin our session now about the importance of mangrove conservation in countering the climate crisis. And this specialized webinar will be spearheaded by none other than Dr. Dixon Guevara. So Dr. Dixon Guevara is a professor and a UP scientist at the Department of Social Forestry and Forest Governance, College of Forestry and Natural Resources, UPLB. He is also the director of the Training Center for Tropical Resources and Ecosystem Sustainability, or TREES CFNR. He is also the president of the Forest and Natural Resources Research Society. And Dr. Guevara mainly works mangrove, blue carbon, and coastal forest governance studies. And he is also a recipient of the Outstanding Young Scientist in 2018 by the National Academy of Science and Technology, an Outstanding Alumnus Award by CFNR Alumni Association in 2019, and UPLB Outstanding Researcher Award in Social Science in 2020. But before we pass the spotlight to Dr. Guevara, may we remind everyone that there will be an open forum after where questions will be entertained. We also remind everyone of the house rules discussed in the beginning of the program. Now, let us welcome our honorable guest speaker, Dr. Dixon Guevara, to discuss with us science-based mangrove conservation promoting climate resilience.
Irish, how's my audio?
Okay po, sir.
How about the screen? Is it moving well?
Yes po.
Okay, so thanks again, everyone, and for the apps and IPSA for the invitation. Pleasant and blessed afternoon to each and every one of you. And I'm so happy that such topic, given the opportunity that I'll share on the topics which is very close to my heart, mangroves. So over the next few minutes, let me share with you the need for science-based mangrove conservation promoting climate resilience, and perhaps providing some insight on how the young foresters, forestry youth, should I say, could help in conserving mangroves. Okay, so if you're ready, then let us begin. Well, I started way back 2004 as a research associate in the environmental forestry program in same college where I graduated, College of Forestry and Natural Resources in UP Los Banos. And this is photo, one of our project sites. And we were tasked to monitor the growth rate, monitor the survival. And during that time, I remember we're actually one of the very first to look how we can compute the carbon stock potential or the carbon sequestration potential of this mangrove reforestation site somewhere in Pagbilao. If you can see here, the private sector who funded this project used a line planting method with a very wide distance, and those that are stick on the grounds are Rhizopora or Bakawan propagules. A year after that, because this is a monitoring study, we look at how well, the success of that reforestation was or going. And we found out a lot of problems. Barnacles, those that are attached to the stem, it's like an infestation.
So you're serious about being so?
Then,
Which resident? Granville.
survival rate is also low. So that time, we are trying to figure out why is that, it falls below the expectation. No? I mean, survival rate is low, and the health of the mangrove is obviously bad. And looking at the far back, no, because these areas that are planted are the seafront. No, it's the seafront area. The far back, those are actually not Rhizopora or Bakawan. Those were actually Avicennia and Sonerata. Then I did a study, moving forward 2008, on a real Rhizopora stand somewhere in San Juan, Batangas. And I have observed that this particular species, they congregate or they grow closer to one another, or should I say they grow in clump. So it gave us an impression or an observation. Why is that we are planting this way while nature, tells us that they grow this way. And 2009, I had also an opportunity to visit and conduct my dissertation on this particular site in Banacon Island. And the local community planted, not using 1 by 1 as compared to this one by 1 to 1, or 2 by 2 meter distance. They use your 0.5 meters, very close. Hence, survival rate and growth rate was really good. No, at the early age of this Rhizopora trees, no, their roots are, how to say that, entangled well. Comes the monsoon period, storm periods, storm months, they are more stable and resilient. So that gives an idea. So this photo also shows that nowadays we see a lot of mangrove reforestation or mangrove planting activities. No, I believe that your organization has a project, a long-term project already somewhere in Quezon. And there's really a need to, the right consciousness, the right information when we do mangrove planting. This one is monoculture, as we know. And is this the right site for planting Rhizopora? You look at down there on the sediment. It's not actually a natural mangrove, habitat or stand or site, but rather is an equally important habitat called seagrass bed. No, so I was here to also monitor and also study how well Rhizopora, those Rhizopora seedlings that were planted perform, in terms of survival rate, and later on, carbon stock. They were planted on, they're not, how to say that, they're non-natural habitat. Basically, this is seagrass bed. And in this collaborative project funded by AP and Japan, we visited and conducted some observations in Mergui Island, Myanmar, whereby we found how people there harmonize the land uses. They have rubber plantation upstream, and they keep healthy mangroves along the coastals to be able to minimize the soil loss or soil erosion. Yeah, somewhere in Shenzhen, I like this place because it's a very busy, highly commercialized city, but they were able to set aside a botanical or mangrove garden along the coast made of Aegiseras corniculatum, Candelia candel, and the Avicennia marina. In this popular site in Palawan, there's a Sabang paddle back, whereby after the boat tour inside the mangrove, tourists can also, plant, mangroves doon sa kanilang ceremonial planting site. So this is a ceremonial planting site, and I asked the people there, what do they usually give the tourists, what species? They said that, of course, the most convenient one is the bakawan because of the propagules. You just stick it on the ground and then that's it. It's like planting. You don't need potting medium, or or how to say that, polyethylene bag. You just stick it on the ground. Hence, this is, the kind of, or the quality of the planting, how successful. So they also asked me, why is that, the area, that's the left side, where they ask their guests, no, or the tourists to plant those propagules, are not doing well, no. It's mainly because Rhizopora, this particular site, is not their natural habitat. Well, in fact, if you look at the left side of your screen, those are the naturally growing Soneratia, no, species, which means Rhizopara here is on a wrong site or wrong zone. And I will elaborate about that there's a need for us to know where is the right place to plant mangroves, and what species, no, what kind of species are ideal there. We have here an old growth mangrove, no, old growth, but this used to be heavily cut, no, or harvested for, charcoal illegally. This is somewhere in Siargao, and that's dwarf. No, I mean, they don't grow tall, but look at the density; it's so high. And of course, we know that the recent Typhoon Odette, uh, ravaged Siargao Island, and I was glad to receive this photo from the vice mayor of Del Carmen, Siargao. He provided this to show that, good news. Mangroves is naturally recovering. So again, another discussion point: do we always need to plant mangrove while there are already mangrove areas existing and they are recovering well, and then they can expand if we could just, protect them seriously? So before I go to the conservation science, let me just explain a little, more about the mangroves. Mangroves are like hinge, they serve as an ecosystem hinge between the landscape and the seascape, no. And we can only find mangroves in the tropical and subtropical regions. But with climate change, many evidences that they are moving southward in New Zealand because of the warming ocean, and also the warming, in general, the warming climate. But anyhow, they are within the tropical, subtropical region, and with the healthy exchange of salt and fresh water, they cannot live fully on fresh water. No? So that means to say that we cannot plant them in freshwater lakes, not like a Laguna Lake, Taal Lake, right? And there's as much as 71 to 73 true mangroves in 123 countries. And in the Philippines, we have about 39 species according to Primavera. And in one of our publication, no, we also reported in general about 29 species, no. So anyhow, as much as 39 species, 16 genera belonging to 14 families, no, found in the Philippines. And mangroves, it's an ecosystem linked with the upstream. That's why we have to keep them, because they trap or minimize the sediments coming from the upstream before they reach the coral beds or the seagrass beds. Now, without mangroves, all those mud particles from the upstreams during rainy season will go directly to the corals or seagrasses, thereby that could damage or degrade those equally important species. So they are somehow filters, no? Serving as filters. They regulate tidal waves, and of course, mangroves sequester voluminous amount of atmospheric carbon. And I will elaborate on that as well a little later. There are so many ecosystem functions and services that mangroves provide. You name it: tourism, coastal protection, and many others. And much of the conservation efforts over the past few decades are because of the increasing awareness of these functions, and some evidences as well, like this one, a town saved by mangroves, because at that the town center of Palumpon, they have this, they are keeping this mangroves like an island, no, as a cover or shield from storm surge. So during the Typhoon Haiyan, category 5, other municipalities, coastal communities were ravaged, but because of the mangroves, the Palumpon town center